It's Emma. I'm here to do my October wrap-up because somehow it's already November, and I'm really excited today because the election just got called, but I did leave filming this to very late, so the sun is setting, it is 4:30, I hate that, and I'm sort of, in a race against the light here. So I'll try to be speedy. So in October, I read 9 books, which is pretty in line with like a normal reading month for me. I actually did quite a few for different challenges and stuff like that, which normally I'm not actually very good at following through on those things. So that was exciting that I, made some progress in those. So I'm just going to go in order, but I'll try to mention when I read a book for a specific challenge or prompt or something like that. The first book that I read in October was Our Time Is Now, Power, Purpose, and the Fight for a Fair America by Stacey Abrams, which is feeling very topical right now because Stacey Abrams is like our Lord and Savior at the moment in the Democratic Party. I was listening to this book in audio because I was expecting it to be sort of the normal political memoir that you expect when people are running for office, which generally, like, it's like story building for the candidate, right? It's like trying to get out their narrative, and generally I find those sort of political books a bit light on the content, to be honest. So I was sort of expecting a bit of a throwaway book. I was just trying to get myself more into nonfiction because I had been slumping for a while in nonfiction. I am happy to say that this book went above and beyond my expectations for a book written by a political operative, I guess. So basically it's a issues book about voting rights and the ways in which we can protect people's voting rights and increase turnout and sort of have better, fairer elections across the US. But it was surprisingly informative in terms of sort of the history of voting rights and what current challenges we have in, making sure everybody has access. I think Stacey Abrams is a realist in terms of like what can be done, but even though I think a lot of the races that she talks about in the book have been written off in the past because they're assumed to be not competitive for Democrats, she makes the point that that's not really true, and like we should be fighting for people in those areas. Just because we haven't been able to win so far doesn't mean that we should totally write them off, etc. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it overall a 4 stars. After that, I read What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. So this is a book by Murakami. It's a reread for me. I think I give it 4 stars. Yes, I give it 4 stars again. So basically this is a collection of essays that Murakami wrote as he prepared for a New York Marathon. And I talked about this a bit in my Nonfiction November TBR and Rex video, so I won't go over it extensively, but I just needed something to inspire me to get running again, so I read this one. After that, I read The Sparrow by Maria Doria Russell. And this I also mentioned in a video recently, but I forget which one or why I was talking about it, and I don't think I talked about it too much, so I'll just talk about it here. I think this was also a 4-star book for me. So basically this is a book that's set in the near future where a Jesuit party is going to make contact with an alien race, and it's a really interesting look at faith and science and how those intersect, and has a lot of themes of found family and love and what types of love there are, what loving means in terms of family versus like God and stuff. I don't know, I found it really interesting. It focuses on a lot of concepts that I don't really think about very much, and also I thought it was like definitely an interesting take on space exploration because it was very reflective of 17th century exploration where a lot of it was sort of like run by the church, I guess. So I thought it was a really interesting premise. The last bit, I wasn't really sure how I felt about the resolution, which I'm obviously not going to spoil here. But yeah, I think it might have even hit the 5-star mark if it wasn't how it wrapped up, which was interesting, but I can't talk about it here. After that, I read The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and I give this one 3 stars. I think for me it was overhyped a bit. I mean, I knew it was a middle grade fantasy going in, so I sort of knew what to expect overall, but even so, I found the story a little bit overly sweet, a little bit saccharine, I guess. 2 things that mean the same thing. This book is about Mr. Baker, who is a middle management sort of guy at this company that runs orphanages for magical youth for the government. And he sort of has been, working at this organization for a long time, but is definitely, Michele. Sorry. Is definitely stuck in the status quo a little bit, does his job, but is generally a bit lonely. But at some point, very upper management calls him in and sends him to this orphanage at the edge of the Cerulean Sea, where he meets lots of cute little magical kids and the headmaster at the school, and there's a burgeoning romance there. It was very well written. I enjoyed it. I think that maybe middle grade in general is not my bag. Michele, if you knock over my computer, so help me God. Overall, a 3. I think maybe I would have ranked it higher if it had not been a little bit overhyped for me. But I liked it. The next book I read was Invisible: How Young Women with Serious Health Issues Navigate Work, Relationships, and the Pressure to Seem Just Fine. This is by Michele Hirsch. So this book, I am saying, is for my Overdue October challenge that I set myself. It's not the one that I said I was going to read for Overdue October, but it has been in the past recommended to me by a friend, so I think it still counts. This is a nonfiction book where Michele Hirsch explores how chronic illness and disability can severely affect young women, and how, because society doesn't really take young women seriously in terms of like the medical establishment or just like in general, it can be a really big problem. So I think in a lot of ways this was sort of preaching to the choir for me. I don't have any severe chronic conditions, but I have a number of friends who either suffer from chronic illness or are disabled. This book talks a little bit about the difference in between categorizing yourself as chronically ill or disabled and how some people will prefer one over the other. A lot of the benefit of this book is in the interviews she does with many young chronically ill women, and hearing about their experiences firsthand, both with interacting with the world around them and with the medical establishment and with their, work lives. I think because I do know a number of people with chronic illnesses, a lot of the content was, stuff that I've heard about before, that I've talked about before, but I do think this is a really great compilation of experiences and exploration of how illness can affect your life as a young person. So I would highly recommend it if that's like not a topic that you've gotten into before. In the end, I gave it 4 stars because I ripped through it. I thought it was very readable overall. Yeah, I'm doing much better this month on nonfiction. I'm sort of like feeling my old self in terms of reading, which is always good. The next book that I read was The Devil in the White City: Murder, Magic, and Madness at the Fair That Changed America. And I already talked about this quite a bit in my reading vlog that I recorded because I was listening to this on audiobook while I was driving around, and it freaked me out. But I think in that vlog I didn't really sort of give you a good overview of my impressions of the book. This book is a nonfiction book by Eric Larson, and it covers the serial killer H.H. Holmes and the Chicago World Fair of oh god, I already forget what year it was. I do think that sort of like combining those two stories was very effective, because in the beginning, the World Fair storyline was sort of slow to start, but you're obviously also talking about a serial killer, so that's coming in hot. And then I found, like, as the book continued, I got more and more interested in the World Fair aspect of, like, how it got built, how, like, it like affected society, or like how it was received at that time and stuff like that. I found very interesting. And like as I was getting more interested in that, I was like less interested in the serial killer stuff. So I think in the end I also gave this one 4 stars, which is loved it. I think in reality it's probably more of a 3.5, but I can't start doing half stars because that way lies insanity, I guess. After Devil in the White City, I read Mort, which is the 4th Terry Pratchett book, because, of course, I guess I'm just reading Terry Pratchett forever. I did check, and the library doesn't have the 5th Terry Pratchett book, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to skip it? Am I going to buy it? I, like, don't really want to buy random books out of this series, but I'm not gonna buy like all 60 books. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But Mort was very good. I give it 4 stars. Mort is about Death's apprentice, Mort, and his, journey being Death's apprentice, I guess. I'm sorry. I'm so bad with the summaries. So Death is a character that has popped up in previous Discworld books, and I find him very funny overall. So I really, really enjoyed this one. Like, I really like with these books how they're definitely not linear, but they all interweave, so you can be like, oh, that like side thing that's happening is sort of interesting, and then it's like, oh wow, a whole book about it. I like enjoyed the way that like mythos of how death happens in Discworld, pretty fun. So yeah, I give this one 4 stars. And then inspired by a lot of the Victober content I was seeing, and specifically some of Milena's reading vlogs, I decided I was gonna read Oliver Twist. So look at me participating in all the things. So I read Oliver Twist. I did end up giving it 2 stars. Oliver Twist is about a young orphan named Oliver Twist, who is sort of being targeted by this street gang. They're trying to like corrupt him and make him into a pickpocket or whatever, but he's too pure not to ruin anything, I guess. This book, I found the first 100 pages really funny. Like, Dickens is a great humorist in general. Like, I really enjoyed his writing for the first 100 pages as he sort of like did some satire work, and then the middle 400 pages were like terrible. Like, number one, there were so many scenes of people lovingly looking down at angelic Oliver sleeping and like having a tear at the corner of their eye, being like, wow, what an angel, so sweet, so pure. And then like the constant, completely inescapable anti-Semitism was very hard for me to deal with. I mean, like, I understand that this is like a signature of Victorian literature, but I feel like given where we are in the world and like how prevalent anti-Semitism is in our current everyday life in the US, it's just like not something I want to deal with in the literature I'm reading. So that was like my main problem with it. It was just so bad. It was so egregious. I just like had a very hard time putting up with it. But then I guess in the end, like the last 100 pages were actually quite thrilling. Like things were happening. It was very exciting. So I feel like I give the first 100 pages and the last 100 pages a 4 star, and the middle bit a 1 star. And I think overall that averages out to about 2. So those are my thoughts. The last book that I read in October was In Cold Blood, and this was really good. I liked this in terms of true crime way more than Devil in the White City, although I gave that a 4, so I guess that means I should give this a 5. it got me thinking a lot more than I expected. So basically, In Cold Blood is about the Cutter family that in 1959 were found murdered in their farmhouse. And it seemed like a completely senseless crime at the time, and it was a big mystery who killed them. But it's not really a mystery for the reader because you're sort of following the Clutters in their last days and then also the killers at the same time. But the sort of like interest or like forward motion for me at least was figuring out the why, and that wasn't really resolved until very late in the book, and I think it rated a 5 stars for me because it made me think a lot about well, I feel like I'm gonna throw out some keywords and it's gonna affect the way you read it, so maybe I'll just keep it vague too. I won't like ruin some of the revelations that happen later in the book, but I will say that I think that this could be very interesting to you if you're interested in true crime in general, or if you're just looking for a nonfiction book that reads very narratively. This one's very good. So that one, In Cold Blood, I also read for my little Overdue October challenge, which means that I read, I guess, 2 out of 4 prompts that I meant. I think In Cold Blood has won a prize, so... Okay, so technically In Cold Blood was awarded an Edgar Award in 1966 for the best fact crime novel. So that means that it feels like cheating. It feels like cheating, but that does mean that I finished 3 out of the 4 Overdue October prompts I set myself, which were read the oldest book on my TBR, which is In Cold Blood. That was one of the first ones that I put on my Goodreads TBR. Read a book recommended by a friend, which is Invisible. And read a prize winner, which can also be In Cold Blood. So I'm just going to call that a general win for that challenge, with room for improvement. Okay, cool. It's been a great day. I hope you all are doing well, and I'll see you guys next week.